Hello everyone, welcome to Banking Frontiers. My name is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers. And apart from the magazine, we do a variety of interactive programs like this. Today we are discussing a very interesting topic, automation at the speed of innovation. So automation has been talked about, innovation has been talked about. Bringing them both together is perhaps an exciting opportunity. I have four very interesting panelists with me, and I'll ask them at this point to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll jump into the moderated session. Can we start with the ladies first? Anjana?
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Banking Frontier, for giving this opportunity. A big hello to my co-panelists here. I'm Anjana Rao. I have close to 20 years of experience within insurance and varied roles, setting up IT. Being a part of the IT teams of most of the insurance companies, so right from 2002 onwards, have now shifted into business transformation and strategy. I have been associated with India First Life for the last 5 years and primarily driving the digital agenda here.
Yeah, good afternoon, all of you. I have been with Equitas for about 6 years. I look at three areas. So one is corporate strategy, second is analytics, and the third is customer experience, which I've started to look at recently. Given that banking is a consumer-facing industry, we felt that we need to start making a difference there. And so these are the three things I look at.
Hi, this is Manish Madan. I'm part of Aegon Life Insurance. I've been with Aegon Life for about 7 years now. I've spent most of my time, 18, 19 years of time across telecom and insurance. I've done work across various facets of operations, from collection, retention, some bit of corporate sales, managing large size call centers, setting up services, and now I'm leading the digital customer service and digital customer experience for Aegon, trying to create a difference. Like Dheeraj, I'm not techie, but I'm leading a team of about 10, 12 developers, along with some tech leads now for last 18 months, and trying to create a fully digital-ready customer interface for Aegon Life. That's about it.
Yep.
I'm very happy to join such a exciting panel for discussion. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Banking Frontiers, for having me here as well with the August panel. So just to introduce, my name is Mahesh Hariharan. I've been 2 decades in the IT industry, spread across sales, consulting, some amount of leading industries. And now I lead the BFSI segment for the India South Asia region for Blue Prism. Blue Prism is an intelligent automation company. So that's the quick intro from my side, and looking forward to a great discussion.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you for that introduction. So innovation and automation, two things that really are driving a lot of transformation these days. But how well do they work together is something that we as an industry need to understand. We will have our individual experiences in our individual organizations. So what I'd like to hear initially is one example of a smooth integration where in the planning and execution went smoothly, and one example from each of you where it was not so smooth, where there were difficulties. Would it be possible I invite all of you to give one example of each, one on the plus side, one on the minus side, then we'll try to get the big picture together.
Yeah, so very interestingly, Manoj, like I was explaining just now, we have very recently created a fully API-driven architecture, whether that's for core system or for service layer, or for any additional layer which is sitting outside the core system, where we have ensured that we have segregated the personal information policy details with respect to the policy life cycle, which is the product life cycle. We've segregated those two. So, we have had extremely smooth integration with the new age e-commerce companies like Paytm, Flipkart, PhonePe, etc. And we have successfully and at a very fast speed integrated our offerings on their platform. So these are some examples which purely because we had a clear lead in terms of having a API is ready for such integration, we could really integrate well. Similar example with some partners have been where the partners are not ready with a similar kind of tech, and therefore eventually we have to retrofit whatever they have into our. You can't really say no to business, right? While the partners are also tech driven, they've not at the same state of or same stage of development or stage of technology, and they are still at maybe stage one. Maybe we're stage one or stage 3 or 4. At those points, we find it difficult, and we've had some not so great experiences of really tying things together.
Interesting. Thanks, Manish. Dheeraj?
Yeah. So one thing which has gone well, and from a background, so we are our tech stack is relatively new. So we don't have some of the traditional problems you hear when you speak of automation through bots or RPAs, because we don't have too many legacy systems. And I think, like Manish said, he used the word API. I tend to be a little scared when I use API and then RPA together, because I think one will kill the other. And clearly, in our view, APIs are just taking over and RPAs already look a little archaic. But trying to stick to a bit of automation, what we did and what went well is we've got digital accounts, again, either done through a partner or done by ourselves, where from the comfort of your home, you can open a savings account. The whole thing is layered with APIs to ensure that we have bureau checks, we have PAN verifications, we have all of that, and straight through in less than 5 minutes, an account gets opened. So we have our API stacks ready, and like Manish said, there were partners where they didn't have, or the API integrations were taking time, and that's where we try to use RPA and try to do it. Obviously, it doesn't give the same feel, but that went really, really well. In my view, that was smooth. Just to touch on one other, because I don't want to steal the limelight from what Manish also said, where we use bots heavily was what we used for when we give loans to the lower income group. They don't understand loan statements, etc. They don't understand receipts. So we gave them a card, and they all hopefully are getting smartphones, or our employees have smartphones. It's a card, like a visiting card, which has a QR code. And each time they scan it, they get their latest passbook or they get their latest loan statement. So the second they make a payment for their EMI, and most of them make their payments through cash because they're not good in banking. As soon as they make the payment and my collection officer registers the payment, they can scan the QR code and instantly they see their loan statement getting updated. And this is something which we thought worked well, where English was not necessary, language was as a whole can be avoided, and transparency in terms of empowering this strata of the customer played well.
Very interesting. I was just curious, was that QR code working only with an app or just some other
it was
approach?
open. They don't need an app. These customers are like your domestic helps or people who work or help us at home. So they really don't need to even look at an app. They just click, it's a link, and then they see their latest loan statement and their receipt for the payment they have made.
Very interesting examples. I request Anjana to give both sides of the picture.
Yeah, so I would say one successful implementation would be, for all insurance processing forms, you need to scrutinize quite a lot of documents. So while there are standard documents for which there is an automation, you link it with external services like the third-party services, and you verify them based on the PAN or Aadhaar or the CIBIL scores. But still, there are applications for which there are documents which need to go through a scrutiny check. So now we said, okay, fine. How do we deal with this particular problem so that the time taken by the scrutiny team can be minimized and it can be automated, so that my application form, once it comes in and gets logged in, the BPM moves into the issuance bucket if everything is fine, and the wait time hence can be made 0. So with that intent, we started, so it was a huge set of rules, multiple systems to be verified. So we kind of emulated every step which my scrutiny guy does. There were 27 documents which we trained So it was a combination of a bot doing the processing, plus it was also the vision, AI, which was reading the document. So we trained for 27 documents, so it could read, fetch the values, compare, and then, update the scrutiny checklist. Yes, I've checked this, I've checked this, I've checked this. And then the outcome was, yes, if all ticked, scrutiny pass, stamped, move ahead.
Okay.
So all ticked, scrutiny pass, move ahead into the scrutiny bucket. So this is what one successful, I would say, thing which we have achieved. So we are yet to realize the benefits, because right now what we are doing is we've enabled it for one channel, and depending
One?
upon the success rate for one channel. So
One
all
channel.
cases,
Okay.
yes, and then we will extend it. So right now it is getting tested, and we are trying to figure out where all this bot, if at all it is failing. So we've got
Okay.
a good pass percentage. I think 87-88% pass percentage is there with the bot. So that's where we are with the successful case. And I would say there was one a bit complicated scenario where we wanted to where we came up with a product where the premium rates to be calculated. There was a huge set of rate table, which was, I'm not an actuary, so please excuse me, but I'll try to simplify the stuff. So there are huge tables which were required to be calculated to arrive at a price. So multiple dimensions were there. So we used it at two levels. One is for the actuarial. So whenever the actuarial has to come up with a price table now, so we use a bot. We've given them the bot. It populates the pricing table for them. They look at it, and then it goes for filing. So it is for pre-filing. And now we use the same bot as a service, which gives us at the bank. So we have integrated it with the bank, when the loan is getting processed. So at that point in time, it provides it as an input. It takes input and provides an output, which is what is going to be the premium for this particular group cover. So that's where we have successfully integrated bot as a service as well.
Interesting. So,
but there were learnings. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mahesh, if I may ask you, I mean, you've seen this example. You've probably interacted with 50, 100 organizations that are trying to do similar things. How do you think companies can improve, can achieve faster integration between innovation and automation at the planning stage, at the execution stage, at any other stage?
Yeah. Thanks, Manoj, for asking. I have veterans here, so and great examples, by the way. In your fields, you've done what is greatly possible with a certain business problem that you all had. But as a learning, I mean, for I'm sure all of you I've independently discussed with many of you as well, right? RPA was not what the RPA was, even 2 years or 3 years back, right? That has completely evolved and changed. But more importantly, more than the product and the features, right? It's the way the customers have started thinking and analyzing on how to innovate. I think fundamentally there are two stages, if you want to say, if you're trying to do something new and innovate, if I want to use that word, right? One is, of course, the planning stage. And I think one important question that our clients, and we have also consulted some of them, is that, what is it that you have to transform? More than that, what might be the future is some question that we need to answer, right? And the moment that question crops up, right, the possibilities of what the future could be also come into play. And like Manish was saying, API is one answer to it, right, of looking at it. But again, how do you integrate those kind of things with your backend and achieve straight-through processing becomes even more important, right? We as Blue Prism has over the years, I mean, we invented RPA, right, 20 years back. So it has evolved in multiple ways. So what we have done, for example, even in the planning stage, is that, we have developed tools within the product itself, which can extensively help clients to even discover the, right process, what is today, what could be in the future. And that could throw out some suggestions, etc., to the, the planning stage. The next comes is the execution stage, right? And again, here, we are all investing dollars into any technology, etc., right? So the important point is that what is your immediate benefits and what could be the future benefits, again, based on the planning stage. So you need to experiment by moving small and fast. And the question is that if you just do a siloed innovation, if I call it in quotes, the full process transformation achievements would be very less. So can your platforms, including your automation platform, help you deliver and test that small and fast gains, right? So that's not there in many automation tools. Only enterprise automation tools typically come and give that. We have something called, for example, Digital Exchange, where you can test APIs, you can test multiple vendors. We have about 2,000 plus leading vendors who are there, who are ready to work on the Blue Prism platform and give you that test and benefit kind of a environment. So you can really know that before going big bang into a certain direction, the perceived benefits are achieved upfront. So you need to have that freedom to do that. So you need to, if you balance these two things, I think you set yourself safely for the future, if you want to call it that way. We have learned it from our multiple clients that we engage with. So I think these 2 points, in my mind, it comes is very important.
There's a time scale that one starts planning for that kind of makes a difference.
Yeah, you have a set a vision a little ahead so that you know that you don't get into a problem a year down the lane after going through a path, right? So that's very important.
Very interesting. Automation, how is it different at the front end and at the back end? Because these are two completely different places. And what has been your experience in using it? How do you make it work more effectively at the front end and at the back end?
I think the drivers have been different for automation at the front end. So the driver has been the customer experience. And how do you simplify the journey? So that has been the driver for doing the automation. So any third-party automation. So if I have a new customer acquisition journey, or if I have a renewal journey, so how can I minimize the customer effort score in my new business journey is something which one will strive for, and one will then look out for automation. Whereas at backend, it would be mostly how can I reduce the wait time and make my process much more efficient will be the driver. So the way I look at it, the drivers are different for front end.
Okay.
The purpose is, yeah.
So the front end is more individual customer and the back end is more organizational efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I would look out for how do I personalize the experience? How would I make it simpler for him to interact with me? How would I minimize any document collection? Where can I go, and get additional information about the customer so that his data entry minimizes? Or else, if it is my business guy, my captive sales guy, I would say, how can I minimize the sales effort to do the data capture? So that's where I would use automation. And
so then obviously there are multiple ways that automation can make different kinds of things easier, different use cases. Yeah. Dheeraj, anything else apart from something to add to this?
So the way we look at it is automation at the front end, like Anjana spoke, has a lot to do with reducing the anxiety of the customer. And you've seen now, I think with more, and I call it, with more and more, I think iPad users, their wait time is zero. They don't even want to boot a laptop anymore. Kids don't want a wait time for anything. And the same thing with customers. We see it day in and day out. The customer starts the journey, and by the time he ends the journey, he wants confirmation, he wants action to be taken, he wants status update, he or she, I'm loosely putting it. When I say he, I'm referring to a bad customer and not. So from that perspective, that's where the customer is. And he comes with so much of anxiety that the next thing is to send a social media post, call the call center, send an email, write to RBI, and say what's the status of whatever he's looking for. And I think that's where automation really plays a key role. But there, the automation has to be real time. Whereas in the back end, it's very different. The back end, when we look at automation, it's how do I ensure that the back end is working 24/7. So when all the employees go home, can all the bots wake up? And can then they just still process it overnight? So any of those so-called batch processing which we do, can we get bots to do it so that when we we have US as our back office, for example. That's
Okay.
that's what we call it. So that's the way when we look at automation. Front end is real time, reduce customer anxiety. I like what Anjana talked about, the score. And at the back end, it's how do we get more cost, kick per rupee, I would call it. How do we get all of that in place so that the same desktop actually works even after the human being is left and all your batch processing happens. So that's at least the way we look at it, and we try to solution things around that.
Very interesting, Tejas. That makes a lot of sense because customers are interacting any time of the day or night. There is no 9 to 5 for a customer to reach out to, unlike in a branch kind of scenario. So welcome, Manish. We were talking about front side versus back side, front end and back end. If automation is used differently, if it is applied differently, any experience from your side?
Yeah, we have to use the same emoji you're talking about. So actually, if you ask me, like Dheeraj mentioned, as we are moving towards API-driven services, we are moving away from the automation done through robots completely. However, if you ask me how we're managing things right now, like I told you, we have two different core systems running at the same time right now, legacy and the new one. At times, at the front end, we have to use some bit of automation to at least recognize the customer and direct the traffic to the right place. So that is what we do at the front end. That's very, very basic, but we still do that. Beyond that, some bit of email automation, etc., is done to ensure that you really point the query at the right place before the APIs can kick in. As far as backend is concerned, we are completely API-driven in real time. We are not really driving in. It's largely innovation there. And it's fully automated. We don't need to really run any batches, except, like I again said, there are times when you develop a certain functionality at a certain different age, different time. Say you launched a product 6 months ago, but day 2 of that product is 6 months later, and you have to exercise certain, batches of certain stages have to pass by. You may just plan automated batches at that point in time. So that's the only use of, automation. If I'm using these terms loosely, API is largely for real-time stuff, automation largely for things which you can plan and do. That's how we end up doing it.
As I understand, compliance will sometimes force you to automate something. Let's say moratorium came in, so you have to process thousands and millions of loans.
Please don't remind us.
Possible.
So please don't remind us of that phase. So
agreed.
So I think that's where Manish came in, where something I need to deploy tomorrow or day after. For example, the moratorium got announced as soon as we woke up. And then we needed to reach out to lakhs of customers, get confirmation. We use voice bots for that. So that, there's some message and the customer says yes or no. But it's not a long-term solution. Long-term, we rather go with APIs and all of that.
Dheeraj, just a question to you. When you're talking about some of these bots which you deploy on demand, are you using some of the available services ready off the stack, or these are internally developed basis certain stacks, or you are using partners?
No. So far we have done internal. It has its plus and minuses, but everything is done internally.
Okay, good to know that.
Then the same question to you, Mahesh. Are there different kinds of technologies or approaches for enhancing automation at the front end and back end?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example, which Dheeraj just now mentioned on the moratorium case, right? I mean, while it's not, of course, in India, but we similarly across the globe, across geographies, the central bank intervened there, right? In terms of moratoriums and extending the tenures, etc., right? So the whole point is, when we say, front-end automation, there are 2-3 things in it, but I'll stick to one example, which is, having a, human in the loop element, right? Of, let's say, if you don't have, like Dheeraj was mentioning that they sent, voice messages was the yes or no to come back, right? So in Australia, for example, we had one of our clients, who had to process about 250x volume with the existing set of people in the field, right? For moratorium requests. There's no way that they could do that to reach out customers, etc. VoiceBot is a great idea, but again, at that point in time, it could be a different reason. So what, for example, in Blue Prism, we have something called an HITL, interact sort of a form, where forms are pushed to emails or anywhere, etc., to people on the phones or an SMS or however. And that becomes a very simple form with 3 options, right, on how they want the moratorium to be processed. And there is no human element there, just a form populates. They just say yes, and the digital worker, which is we don't call it the bot. The digital worker picks it up from the phone right away or the iPad and takes it up for processing then and there without any human intervention, right? So, that is an example where the digital worker actually touches the front end without a human even required, for example. Sometimes the human is required if there is a, approval or a, threshold to be left, etc., which can obviously be given back to the human again through a form or whichever way it is. One example which, touching on to what Dheeraj was saying. But fundamentally, I think as a when we try and marry the RPA or intelligent automation with any of the even front-end usage, you need to have a platform which has all of it. It's just not lying on the desktop, right? It is centrally available. It is centrally available through web interfaces, or through VPN, etc., right, to your employees. For example, it would be call centers. Another example, I think I don't know if it was Anjana or Dheeraj who mentioned that sentiment analysis based response, right? We deliver that to quite a few of banking clients. So there are a lot of APIs and very specific tools in the market. For example, you speak onto Alexa and say that, hey, I have to raise a complaint with ICICI Bank. Example, I'm just saying, right? Depending on the tone or tenor of it, the urgency is set up as a threshold, and the digital worker picks up from there and responds back with the backend system and comes back with an answer or through Alexa itself, right? These are integrations where the front end, request, even based on a sentiment analysis, is taken up. So again, the question comes up whether these technologies probably are not developed by Blue Prism, but how can you marry that with an intelligent automation enterprise tool is the important question. How quickly can you do that? Comes back to my first point.
Yeah, but I have a slightly different opinion here, Mahesh.
Mm-hmm.
So what you said may make a lot of sense when you have systems. Let me use systems largely which are batch driven, overnight running. Let's talk about those as, say, offline systems. I'm talking about on-the-go systems which are API driven as online systems. Yes. I don't think the use case you mentioned may be so useful in online systems, because eventually you are more or less interacting with the customer, picking up these queues on demand and really responding back, compared to something which is an offline response and offline channels of customer connect. That's where what you mentioned may actually be very, very useful. But that bifurcation is a very strong line. That's a very hard line, because I don't feel that using this mechanism, this is not the future for sure. People will not wait for you to respond back on something on which they already commented. You can, of course, reduce the damage done, but you can't really completely avoid the damage. And that can only be done if you're really picking up some of these things on the go. For example, if we are testing and we are working on some POCs where we are trying to pick up calls which are not going the right direction while the call is on, instead of doing it later as a quality check. Again, these are POCs. Or the chats which are not going so right, can somebody take over those chats? So doing this later will not really help. So that's my my 2 cents on this particular piece.
No, thanks, Manish. I just want to correct you. This is, I was really talking about a real-time scenario as well, right? It is saying that, if I have a request, let's say my credit card got swiped twice, right? I just, tell Alexa, right, which is connected to my, ICICI Bank system, and just say that I have an issue here, and the person doesn't respond in 1 or 2 minutes. I have an escalation tone, or, I use, harsher words. Right, that kind of a sentiment analysis gets picked up real time, and the response comes back either through the call center or through the Alexa or through an SMS. So it's more real time that I was giving the example.
No, actually, just to stretch this, Manoj, you don't mind if you're hijacking the format, since now we've become all close friends. On voice, and this is where I thought, good, we've got Mahesh and others also. What we've seen. And I don't know, this is my perception, or my intuition says that with this introduction of this chat world, and this is the way I use chat. If I go to one of my service providers, and if I want to raise an escalation or raise a complaint, I go to IVR, press some 10 numbers, and then I don't want to hear it, and I try to get a call center agent. or I go to social media, badmouth, or do something. But what I tend to do is go to the chat, and I don't even wait it as an agent. I will type my problem out, one shot, that 5-10 line, and I put it, and I have registered my complaint. My anxiety level comes down. Now, hopefully they'll understand, and I don't have to repeat it 100 times. They'll get back to me. So this is something which I have noticed, the way I behave, and a few people like me behave. And what I'm trying to introduce now in the call center. So end of the day, at least Indians love to call the call center to speak to an agent and not hear an IVR. So as soon as they call, why can't they go into a voicemail? And it says, thank you for calling, register your, or tell us what the issue is after a beep. And the guy just communicates his problem. He gets heard. And that's the easy part. The tough part is, how do I get that then action? Because it's unstructured, get it action, get it escalated, and then finally, raise a ticket and do the whole thing.
I would actually say that's equally easy now, Dheeraj.
Okay.
What we've attempted when we attempted reading into these transcripts and making some sense of it. Initial assessments have been extremely successful.
Okay.
80% of those are being read, and I'm talking about bilingual. People using Hindi and English at the same time. We were not tried because we don't have a base which is, multilingual beyond Hindi and English. So whatever you've understood using this entire English, we've been able to make some sense of it. Again, these are POCs. Like we said, we are a very early journey.
Okay.
We are at a very early stage in our journey towards becoming completely self-sufficient on this. But I think that also is a very, very doable task.
Is that an on-prem solution, or is that cloud? And then
Completely cloud. We are not in for any on-prem solution.
Most of these are cloud, Dheeraj, right?
Cloud-based.
Around the regulations on this, because that's where we face a problem with InfoSec. Any partner comes and says, we will do anything to do with this, it's on cloud, and then for us all antennas go up, and it then gets
so it's on cloud. I don't really pass on any call records to them. I actually there's an API call which converts it, sends it back to me. A different solution works on the transcript and converts that into a usable knowledge. So it is extremely safe.
So no name, no personal information gets transferred.
So again, it depends on how you want to really go ahead with it. Your solution will you can end up designing complete constraints around that.
See, the only reason, Dheeraj, to add why cloud is that, many of these, for example, for a sentiment analysis, right? Over a period of time is when the system learns that, if this X plus X plus X comes in, the level is, is to be given the highest target, right? So it learns over a period of time. So if it is, set up in your data center, it only takes, the learning is only from that set of customers, right? But if it's, let's say, exposed to a larger market, you get to learn and the sentiment of people.
I also realized actually while doing assessments on a right kind of knowledge partner, knowledge base, partner for knowledge base creation and usage of that, I realized that whatever we tried doing a lot of stuff within the Aegon ecosystem across 20 odd countries, one of the countries was supporting us, but it was still very captive and therefore not growing that well as we would have wanted it to. Compare it to a completely universal knowledge base which learns every day from various use cases across different industry types. It is uncomparable. The kind of educate, the speed in which you can educate it or train it is much beyond what you can do internally. So again, various reference points to it. We have none of us maybe at the best, at the best possible stage on this. But yeah, it's very interesting to discussion.
Yes, the maturity levels of the solutions has improvised. Like a similar POC 2 years back, you had 1 or 2 providers. But now you see so many providers and the coverage of language, Indian language itself, it was a struggle till 2 years back. Now you have folks who are there with sentiment analysis per se. I mean, unstructured data, sentiment analysis, and giving you a score as to how to, which again can be used as an input as to how you deal with the customer.
So
yes.
Just for my understanding, because when we have a call recording, there is the customer name, and most probably he will tell his account number and the balance and all of that.
Yes.
So there is technology to get
you can redact it. You can redact it.
Interesting.
From the transcript, because it's always mentioned the same way. Name is always a name.
Correct.
Account number is always a number, so you can redact it. Number one. Number two, you can run the API in such a way that it just transfers the transcript to you without storing anything. For example, on the innovation side, we have a very we started, actually, we launched this last year and was quite successful. This was a fully, hyper personalized policy video document, which meant that I was transferring information through an API to a partner who was converting it to an animated video with your name, your a different kind of caricature for you. There were about 5,000 different ways in which you could present it, basis about 30 or 40 variables, including the city name, whether you smoke or not, your age, and we could create that we could explain the policy document in about 90 seconds. Now, where we were transferring almost everything, if you really ask me, data include everything, right? Because it's a policy document. That's the crux of your information. But because it was largely API driven, there was nothing being stored anywhere. I was passing individual items to an API call. And therefore, it of course, InfoSec approved it and we moved on with that. And the data is with me and not with the partner.
Mahesh, you have some question to ask about, enabling I see that there are a lot of examples hidden. You pop up one example as and when the problem comes up. But is there like a big picture, that can help people plan for 2-3 years and, not do it piecemeal?
No, I think, it's a learned panelist here, right? I think one thing what we have to fundamentally realize, while it may sound cliche, is that, in some sense, innovation is not invention, right? Innovation is putting that invention into action and practice, and which is relevant to you, right? And when it comes to technologies, right? I mean, APIs today, like Anjana was saying, for sentiment analysis, there are umpteen number of, companies which can come and do that, right? So, but when we take the decision, so one is actually, desirability, the wish of having that, right? It sounds great. It works for you, right? The second one could be viability, if you want to put it that way. And the third is the, feasibility. Viability, it comes to the cost, how much of people would come in, the ROI, etc. And the feasibility, the tech feasibility. So finding that sweet spot becomes important, right? And from an automation perspective, why, I keep repeating that, is because the platform should be as flexible as possible to take such new things which are happening in the front end. What I was saying, Manish, is that, I was trying to put it in 3 buckets. One is desirable, to have something. The next is viable to have something from a cost perspective, and a longevity perspective, whether these things, if it changes, what is the cost of replacement, etc. And the last but not the least is really the feasible part of it, which is a technical integration with, your current system, future systems, and the past systems, right?
There's one more thing missing in this, actually.
Yeah,
that's the use case, and that becomes the sweetest spot, actually.
Correct.
Because most of the solutions are very horizontal in nature now.
Yes.
So you want to cater to multiple use cases. But if you really find that one use case along with the 3 things you said, it becomes extremely, fruitful for you to really move ahead.
Absolutely. So I think, once we do that, we sometimes, we get carried away with something which is great. It can create great impact. But then, we probably need to step back. And I'm seeing that, we've seen that, with many customers, right? And say that, your earlier process, like Manish, for example, you kept the legacy applications outside of it, right? But, at a point in time, you may need to bring it here. Yeah. Or it could be a future system and the current one will become sort of legacy then, right? Yeah. So something which can, cut across all visible or that invisible bridge is something which is there. And that's where, intelligent automation comes into play. I wouldn't say RP, right? Because like I was saying that, your platform should be able to, test these new systems, give you immediate results, try and see all these things come in. I'll just give you an example which has nothing to do with financial service organizations. Okay, one of the largest oil companies. I mean, this is where we save human lives. It'd be interesting and sound. It was very interesting to me. 2 years back, 3 years back, people in those, you can imagine the amount of oil pipes which go. People used to fly in helicopters and go and fix those issues in the pipe, because any explosion, etc., can happen. It can take human lives, right? So today, our systems and then models were generated to do fault analysis. As you can imagine, in pipe based on the pressure variations, etc., right? So today, what our digital workers, what they do is that they actually man these, automated unmanned AVs. They go take pictures and gives a real-time analysis back to the central controlling unit. right? And that has saved so many human lives, even the lives of the people going there, because when they it's like a preventive management, right, based on analysis, etc. So when you think of even rolling up the sleeve and physical activity like this itself, there are ways that automation can actually help in some of these areas, but you have to think through a little in the future. This is an outside example, but I thought it would be interesting, so I give you that.
I have a similar example, actually, not saving lives, but saving exceptions from coming or saving errors from coming in. You end up using similar probes, right, which are running on the go and finding things which should have not happened. For example, if I have to apply premium to a policy on a certain day every month, and the money is normally lying beneath it, that does not really happen. The regulations guide us to not to apply it, well in advance. It has to be applied on the due date only, for example, for insurance. Now we have money lying. Now, when the money is collected, it could be an X amount, but policy features could change because somebody could add, delete a few things from the policy after paying, right? So eventually, and multiple other ways. This I'm talking about the most, simpler of problems. You eventually have probes which are similar, unmanned probes, which keep running and actually publish events which have to be handled on the go. But you're right, that's intelligent automation. That's a very good example of something I did not realize we end up doing in the new system also. But yes, it is very, very logical.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask our insurance friends here, and of course, Dheeraj, we talked about moratorium as something big which suddenly happened. Same way in insurance, if there's a flood or if there's an earthquake, there have been so many floods lately, and then there have been heat waves. When you suddenly have to process a lot of information, do a lot of work in very little time, are your systems scalable and agile enough to handle? Are you building systems that way that can handle these kind of extremities?
Yes, I mean, scalability is something which is quite inherent to any design or any new system that we acquire, that it has to be scalable, it has to be robust. The challenge is how quickly can we make the changes, how agile is the function, I mean, how agile is the system so that they can build in the new functionality. So like, with COVID, I mean, we came up with COVID questionnaire, or the additional, or else with COVID, what happened is, all of a sudden the focus was to make processes contactless, right? So how quickly you are able to make changes is what determines, so that is kind of ingrained into any new system that one evaluates these days, or any new system one builds in. So scalability is a given, agility is also a given, have become a very critical ingredients, because the way things are, I mean, if a process is continues to be the same without changes for 1 year, then you start doubting, has something gone wrong? I mean, why there have not been any changes in the process?
Generally, do you find people as a bottleneck or process as a bottleneck when a change needs to be made?
Both. A mindset as a bottleneck, I would say. At times, because you may come up with the fanciest of the solutions, but if it is not adopted with the same passion and with the same the same fervor, then the solution means nothing, right? So it's a mindset change, I mean, which is required. If I have automated something, so how we look at a value stream map, right? In that value stream map, there are delays, there are wait times. So now you are only removing those inefficiencies or those wait times or those handshakes by automation. So automation is not displacing anything. It is in fact bringing in the efficiencies. But if everybody starts relating and looking at the value that it brings in, so that the efforts to drive adoption can be minimized, is a challenge. Is the challenge, the efforts which one spends to drive adoption, if that can be minimized, I mean,
Manoj, in our case, I think so. We have been on a journey to become fully agile for about 18 months now. So this mindset is not a problem. The entire organization is driven towards finding tech solutions to every problem. So that is very clear. Okay, it's fully adaptable to any new technology. The only problem, like I said, our new system, the new age system which we are creating, that new architecture is completely scalable. We can move from thousands to millions in a span of hours. It's been planned that way. However, And we face this problem. Why talk about floods? COVID led to a 200% increase, actually 300% increase on claims. And most of our claims were on the legacy systems because these are claims are older policies, and there we face exactly the challenge you're talking about, and we are looking at automation to solve that problem. But like I said, because the system, the legacy system was not agile and not really plug and play or not really integrable so easily, the challenge there is far bigger. And therefore, automation or RPA is the only way forward for some of those things. But these are short-lived problems which may not really linger on for a long time. And therefore, we are trying to find a solution which really we are able to use it prospectively also, which means we are trying to build something on the new system to support the old one rather than really wasting time building something in the old system to take care of things. But what you said is a problem, and I don't think we have a ready solution for that as far as legacy systems are concerned.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that the way I would understand from this is that there's a need for automation and problem solving, not just processing.
Yep.
I think solving problems quickly is something where
yes,
automation and mindset, as Anjana described it.
So I'll just like to chip in. I know we are top of time, right? But just a quick minute, right? I think Manish, for your example and Anjana's example, that point is really about reusability, right? For example, you said, once an automation is created, that's a short problem. But what if the same automation can be reused for something? The same digital worker, you should never be tied to a process or a system. It should be available centrally for cutting across. In the morning, it may be working for a finance department. In the afternoon, it should work for an HR department, right?
Yes.
So it should be centrally available. And again, analogy, you should think about automation when you build it as Lego blocks, right?
I know, but Lego blocks also, assume you are trying to make something out of Lego blocks, you end up using some of the pieces when you want to use them. When you're not using them, you don't want to pay for them. So like I'm doing for my new system, I'm actually paying for whatever server space I'm using, whatever processing space I'm using, and I'm not paying when I'm not using it. If this digital worker works like that for me, I'm more than happy to use it.
Correct.
So because this problem, what Manoj just mentioned, may be a problem which is only 3 months in a year. And we are building something where we are ensuring that every penny is utilized. Like you said, make ones use multiple times, but that multiple times should be in your hands and not really. So I think that is one gap which I expect potential partners to fill, because that's the distance you will have to travel, because we are now used to some of these things.
No, that distance is all traveled. I would say it's not yet reached in India, but BP, for example, is available on the cloud on a pay-as-you-use model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just about that, right? So
I get that. I'm just saying I find that is a big difference.
Yes, you're right. In India, I think from an adoption perspective, still cloud on automation still not sunken. But for example, our revenues 60% across the globe comes in cloud, right? So as an example, I'm just saying. So yes, you're right. I mean, if you have an answer for some of these things together, it makes a lot of business sense.
Great. Thank you. I just want to point out that we had a discussion last week on how to on data, managing data on the cloud, rather overall, and how data on the cloud can kind of explode and increase your cost if you're not careful about it.
Yeah.
So it gives you cost benefit, but it can also, like a credit card, if you use it indiscriminately, if you use a credit card indiscriminately, you're going to get a big bill at the end of the month. The same kind of issue is there with the clouds. Easy to use, but there's a risk of overusing it or not optimizing it.
Mano, it's a good platform. We should connect more often with more pointed, very, very pointed, solution-driven items. I'll be more than happy to hear what others are doing to just, shamelessly copy some of these things.
Copying is also become an art nowadays.
Definitely, I mean, a good exchange of ideas. Loved it. And definitely, I mean, so one good thing which is happening, Manoj, because of these discussions is thanks to Banking 20 years, I have made quite a lot of friends. So definitely, wonderful. I mean, we are going to be in touch. for exchange of information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Nice
Thank you
meeting
very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.